Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and welcome to another YouTube video where today we are covering the price increase that was announced last week. Now, we've been here before, so I'm not going to waste too much time on the preamble, but again, Warhammer has gotten a price increase yet again. And unfortunately for us, things just keep getting more expensive, and Warhammer is no exception. As an expensive hobby, it only gets more expensive. Joining the likes of card games, Legos, action figures, whatever it may be, things are just getting more expensive. So the one solace to take away from all this is that we aren't suffering alone. Just look at our cousins over in Yu-Gi-Oh! Land paying $75 for a staple card in every deck that people use. But that doesn't mean that we have to only suffer in inaction. We can take action to save money and make sure we aren't getting totally flogged by these price increases. So, I think the first step we need to establish, especially with us Warhammer fans, is just don't buy anything. I was really good about this for the first 8 months of my hobby journey, and now I have like 120 unpainted models that are sitting on my filming desk that I still haven't gotten to. It's something that we Warhammer players just kind of have a knack for, starting a pile of shame that just completely gets out of control. Trust me, I'm not trying to say I'm holier than thou. I've done the same thing. We start these projects, never finish them, they rot on the shelf, and just nothing happens with them. So before you buy anything else, why don't you just work on that? I'm going to try and do the same thing. I'm restricting myself from buying Warhammer until I get through most of my Grey Tide. So instead of buying the Combat Patrol for that 10th army that you're never going to finish, why don't you focus on the stuff you have, work through that, and once you finish it, I guarantee you the feeling will be so good when you put down that brush for the last time and know that you have a fully painted collection. Or if you don't want to paint something, trade with a friend, sell it off, do anything like that. Those are ways to help alleviate the pressure on your wallet. And a side note to this, just send a limit to how much you spend. Don't buy every new pre-order. Don't buy every new box that comes out. Just buy what you want to buy. If you really are trying to tune for competitive, complete a codex. That is my biggest advice. Complete a codex. No matter what gets strong, you'll have an option to run it. Don't be like me with 600 points of Eldar sitting there completely unpainted, except for 5 Wraithguard. But of course, eventually, we will need to get new models, whether it's from a new codex, a new wave of releases, whatever it is. Eventually you need to get more stuff, because what's the point in being content in your army when you could have a bigger army? There's generally 3 points that I like to go with. There's of course eBay, not only for pre-owned stuff, but there are discount retailers on there. You can also use Amazon, but I find the eBay sellers to be a little more friendly, not like in a corporate overlord sense, but in a they just ship things faster, surprisingly enough, and the price difference is non-existent because they're both selling at about a 10 to 15% discount. One I use all the time is Flipside Gaming. I'm not sponsored. I just really like them. They're really friendly and they're really cooperative with whatever you need. Of course, there are the dedicated secondhand markets. Frontline Gaming here in the US has an entire section of their store dedicated to pre-owned things. And you're going to get a pretty solid discount of like 20% usually, but it comes with the caveat that they might not be complete, they're already built, or they are, as I said, not complete, already built, or already painted, which does add an extra layer of work. But just go to the dollar store near you and get LA's Totally Awesome and soak your models in that, give them a scrub with a brush, soak them again if you need to, and you should get down to bare plastic, or the primer at the very least. Of course, there is the thing that a few guys in your gaming group won't stop talking about, and that's the GW killer, or 3D printing. Now, I think for most collectors, a 3D printer is unnecessary. I know that in theory, yes, it is just undeniably cheaper if you're collecting multiple armies. But if you're only getting it for one army, if you're a solo army collector, I don't really see a reason to get it. And you can buy stuff. If you have a guy in your gaming group, they'll usually be happy to print things for you for dirt cheap. I get a guy in my store to print me helmets all the time for like 30 cents a dozen. But if you don't have someone in your gaming group, eventually you will, trust me, you can use Etsy, which I use quite a lot to get a lot of my third-party models. that they sell at a pretty good price. Just to make sure you check the reviews and be aware that some 3D printed models are in a slightly different scale, tending to be more proportioned properly instead of the heroic scale that you find on GW. If you don't know what heroic scale means, it means bigger heads, hands, weapons, and usually shoulders. Of course, if you don't want to deal with any of that, you just want your plastic models to be plastic models, so you don't need to buy extra tools to work with resin, you can, of course, go to other companies. One that comes to mind is Wargames Atlantic, and that covers a point that not every army is going to have this. The army, like the Imperial Guard, tend to have quite a lot of third-party support, just given how popular they are and how many different factions they have, which is Wargaming Atlantic comes in. These guys here on the left, the Raumjäger infantry, I use a lot of them in my Guard and my Chaos Space Marines. I think they not only sell for a great price, they're pretty good models. They're sculpted by Bob Naismith, a legend in Warhammer history, and they're generally of a comparable quality, though obviously they're not as refined, they don't go together quite as well, don't come with instructions, and don't include bases. If you need bases, though, you can usually get them by the hundreds on eBay, depending on the size, for $10 or less, no matter the size. But for my last point, I just want to say, don't be this guy. I'm sure you've seen this guy before. He's the guy that comes in, buys whatever's on the new releases shelf at your local Games Workshop store or hobby store, spends about $100 at the hobby store, and then sort of walks around with the bag in hand. He will find someone who's currently involved in a game of Warhammer or similar, and then sit there when it's not their turn, start talking to them, and tell them about how much GW hates them, and is the reincarnation of the Dark Lord Sauron. Just, whatever you do, just be consistent about it, right? If you're going to buy pure GW, then just do it. I get it. Their models are great. Their customer service is second to none. There's a reason that GW is as successful as it is. But if you don't want to support GW and you think they're evil, the simplest thing you can do is not. There's never been an easier time to just get models cheaper, get models that aren't made by GW, get good customer support elsewhere as well. You don't have to buy GW, but don't buy GW and then start yapping to people at the store trying to enjoy their one day off a week playing a game with their friends about how GW is trying to kill the game and hates their army. That's just a slight side tangent. If you can't tell, every gaming store I go to tends to have one of these guys walking around, probably because I go on Saturdays when all the new stuff from last week comes out. Anyways, I've been Spoons Rattling. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.